Good evening, friends. This is the first and possibly the last PowerPoint presentation I'm ever going to do. I thought I'd do it just for the sake of Harry, and if it's less than perfect, then please forgive me. This 74-year-old hard drive struggles with the technology at times, but we'll have a go. This talk is tribute to Harry Beran for everything he's taught me and for his huge contribution to Massim cultural knowledge in the last 30 to 40 years. We'll never see his like again. He has no peer. I first met Harry at an OAS forum here in Sydney about 10 to 12 years ago. I don't recall exactly when. And as someone who myself had spent a fair bit of time in Milne Bay over the years, I didn't really have much of an understanding of Massim culture until I met Harry. He started me on a great voyage of discovery. Here's Harry in Paris. One of my favourite memories of him, inspecting his favourite sort of long spatulas, beautiful objects. Okay, we can't see all of the text here, but anyway. Where it all began. This is me on a bike. You probably don't recognise me, but it is me. Public Works Department, 1966, Alatau, Milne Bay. Alatau is the new town then. It was established in about 1965. The Australian administration decided they'd move, set up a new district headquarters, shifted it from Samurai. Samurai was really too small an island, had no flat land really for industrial purposes. So they set up this new town called Alatau. It's got quite a lot of land, flat land, 300 or 400 acres. And I was there to site some new buildings for the Public Works Department for the new town. I was one of 4 architecture students. That's me with the umbrella there. Like a lot of students at the time, we went up to TPNG, as it was called in those days, and we spent 3 to 4 months just working as student architects. Like a lot of people at the time, they took weekend charters to the Trobriand Islands on a DC-3 side saddle. I don't recall much about it other than a surf beach and a rogue crocodile, but I bought these 2 objects, a lime pot and a letter opener made out of ebony. I probably paid $10 for them then, and they're probably not worth much more today, but I still have them. That was about the limit of my understanding of Massim culture until the last 15 or so years. I'm going to give you a little bit of a geography lesson here, and you'll have to try and, for those that don't know the Massim area, you're going to have to try and follow the cursor, if I can get it on the screen. Milne Bay, where the cursor is now, is a huge bay, probably 20 times the size of Sydney Harbour. Cursor's gone. Alatau's about there. It was shifted from Samurai, which is the old district headquarters there. Nearby is another interesting little island, which will come up a bit later, called Quatto. Quatto was the original mission station of the London Missionary Society, set up by Charles Abel in 1890, and cursor's gone. He set up a mission, especially along the south coast, but to a lot of the Milne Bay area. From Alatau, you can go to East Cape, which is that tip there, going clockwise around the islands. You've got the D'Entrecasteaux group, Normanby, Ferguson, Goodenough. Just get the cursor again. 3 magnificent extinct volcanic islands. To the north of those, where we are, we've got the Amphlett Islands, flat coral atolls, famous for their pottery. They make beautiful pottery there. I've never got there, but I'd like to one day. North of Trobriand Islands, famous for the cooler, flat sort of coral sort of island. Over to the Marshall-Bennett group. These are pretty remote islands, raised coral islands, about cliffs about 50 to 60 feet high. 3 small islands. I read somewhere that one of them had the highest population density of any island in the world. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I read. Woodlark out here is a sort of a flattish sort of island. And then you've got Egamat, where we spent a bit of time right in the middle of nowhere, really. So that's all regarded as the northern Massim. Southern Massim, you've got the engineer group down here, Wari, the Calvados chain. Having trouble here. Going off screen down to Sud-Est and to Rossel Island. So that's a bit of an overview of the geography. Massim's a Dimdim word. Now, Dimdims are basically Westerners, first used by the Marist missionaries who tried to bring Christianity to Woodlark Island, and they only lasted 4 years, and they left, failing to achieve any progress. If you're in Milne Bay, I mentioned Quatto Island, the LMS station. If you're ever there, take the time to go up to the old church there, built in about 1936, I think, by the Quatto community. Sits on top of a hill overlooking China Strait. It's a beautiful part of the world. That's the interior of the church. I'm showing these because I think there's a couple of architects in the audience tonight. Just beautifully built. That's Alatau in the foreground. The bay in the background, the south side of the bay in the distance. That's looking up the bay, basically all of where the town is, and into the distance is where the 1942 Battle of Milne Bay was conducted. In about 2014, after I'd met Harry, I decided to go to the 2014 Milne Bay Canoe Festival, and I met this man, Joseph. He's a carver. He carved this canoe, and that's his canoe on the right, I think. He's one of 3 canoes that came from the Ferguson Islands. It took them, these are sailing canoes, but it took them, there was no wind, so it took them 3 days to paddle from Ferguson to come to the canoe festival. They were pretty tough people. There's the canoe that we saw on our journey in 2017. We re-established contact with Joseph and his village there, and we spent a lovely day and a half there just documenting this canoe. What is Massim Art? Well, we know what Massim is. It means Westerners, basically. Art I'm using in this talk, really I mean decorated material culture, because their culture, you know, has a lot of decoration in it. Everything they use, just about, typically. So I was on a bit of a quest after I'd met Harry, and I went to the RAI in London, the Royal Anthropological Institute, had a look at the Seligman collection. If you're ever in London and you want to spend a day or a week and just like looking at old photographs and ethnographic material, it's a wonderful place. And Barry Craig said it's a gold mine, which it is. South Australian Museum, 2 collections there. The Reverend Bartlett was a Methodist minister in the 30s to the 60s, and the Vivian collection. And there's some from the Methodist Overseas Mission as well. So what's Massim Art about? Well, it's about sculpture. It's about many things, but you know, there's a lot of sculpture in Massim Art. Here's a something from Seligman in the Rye. I don't know what it is, where it was taken, but that to me looks like a Mutuaga carving on the left. Mutuaga we'll get to in a minute. More sculpture. This has come from the Vivian collection, South Australian Museum. This is a fairly typical pose that you see in wooden carving, the integrated sort of arms, legs, hands all joined together like a little boy squatting. It's about buildings. Here's a Trobriand house, decorated barge boards, stylised fish, lots of scrolls. Here's another version, 2 yam houses on the right, a man's house on the left, again with typical Trobriand design. Here's another Trobriand house, a Kirawina chief's house, photographed by Bartlett. A lot of the houses have these, what they call house boards, horizontal boards, just below the bearers. These 3 here, the top 2, typical rib design, plus the frigate bird, which you see a lot in Massim Art. It's used in contemporary architecture quite a lot too. Here's a lovely little resort. If you ever go there, go to Nili Sapi, a little lodge. You can just see on the gable there some of the designs. There's a bit of a blow up of it. The sort of interlocked scrolls is a fairly common feature of Massim design. There's another little donga as part of the same resort, showing a new contemporary houseboard. Massim Art's also about canoes. When I saw this photo, it just blew me away. This is a type of canoe from the southern Massim. It's not made anymore, probably ceased production in the 1930s, but just the creativity and the craft involved in that I find just superb. Here's another one, again of a different type that is not made anymore. The upswept sort of bird motif here, all connected, is something I don't think I've seen for 60, 80 years in Melbourne Bay. And then there's this photo I found in the Methodist Overseas Mission collection. Like the canoe two back, it's called a wagga hot or iolalu, a big canoe or a traditional canoe or a true canoe. Ceased production in the 30s. Just the complexity of design and craft there is truly amazing to me. There's a photo maybe of the same canoe from the Reverend Harry Bartlett's collection. Some of these were 50 feet long, these canoes, and this one's probably 40 feet long, but beautiful things. Massim Art's also about pots. I mentioned the Amplet Islands. They make some of the best pots in Papua New Guinea, I think. I've not seen one as big as this in recent years. There's one that Harry collected from the Amplets. He brought it back on his lap all the way to Sydney, I believe, because he didn't want to check it in. And this was at an exhibition in Paris in 2016 by Frank Marcelin. I think it's a beautiful pot. It's sort of got the circular base and the sort of squared off top. Just a lovely thing. It's about drums. Most Massim drums have those subtle curves on them, which other parts of Papua New Guinea, I don't think I've seen them like that. It's about ceremonial axes. This is from an island called Sedest. The axe heads, greenstone, came from a mine on Woodlark Island called Sologa. They were traded all over the Massim area as wealth items, but the actual wooden sort of handle is typical Sedest design. And then there's lime spatulas, Harry's favourite objects. This is from the South Australian Museum, one of 3 display cases we had a look at a week or 2 ago. I think some of these are minor masterpieces as well. They're just beautiful objects. And you probably can't see them in detail, but you get close to them and they are special pieces. They still make lime spatulas today. These are 3 that I bought. They're not a lot of money, plus a little stingray, just a contemporary little carving that I bought in the market, I think, for 5 kina. So they're still great carvers. Harry's books. Here are 2, Mutuaga and Beetle Nut Chewing Equipment. Mutuaga's, well, they're both out of print now, but Mutuaga book is really put the Mutuaga, who was a carver from 1860s to 1920s, on the world stage. It's a very thorough description of the first world recognised carver, New Guinea carver, I think. I noticed the copyrights with Harry Beran. I just wonder if OAS might consider scanning both books and putting them online for the world to see, because I think they're worth it. Here's another Mutuaga. This is one of the 12 apostles. It's the only one that we know where it exists. The other 11 have sort of gone missing. If any artefacts lose amongst you can find any of the others, they'll become most valuable pieces. This one was donated by Sheila Abel to the Massim Museum. And they stood in the big house on Quatto for a number of years, but 11 of them seem to have gone missing. Harry was also into rocks with petroglyphs. Here's a rock east of Alatau. He went with Chris Abel, I didn't go that day, and it's got these ancient sort of carvings on them. Another time, Harry wanted to go and inspect the moon rocks of Wagga Wagga. Now, Wagga Wagga is a village opposite Alatau. It's on the bay. It was a pretty tough walk, about 3 to 4 k's inland, about 300, 400 metres climb. Here we are having a bit of a rest at the lower moon rock site. There were a few rock carvings there. We finally got up the top. Here's Ian Poole, who's a friend of mine who used to live there. They pulled the moss back, and then Harry turned up, and if I can just...
One of us two
Right. Oops, no, sorry about that. Right, this is the one I want. When we pulled the moss back, this is what we saw, and this is the group of 3. There are other groups of 2 scattered around on this big sort of, not a boulder, but an outcrop looking over Milne Bay. The villagers know nothing about them, but there are many such petroglyphs in Milne Bay. The ANU archaeology team did some dig recently on Paniate, and they dated their sort of findings back, carbon dating 17,000 years. So we're talking ancient history here, and who knows who did them, no idea. That was the end of a lovely day, and this is at Wagga Wagga village at the end of it. On the way, we came across about 20 fellas cutting a canoe, huge canoe, 22 metres long, you know, 300 or 400 metres above sea level, 2 or 3 kilometres in from the sea, and anyhow, they were cutting it with a chainsaw and adzes and axes. And then then this is actually a movie clip which hasn't loaded. They carted it down to the sea. I wondered how they'd do it, but they just put bearers across the creeks and with ropes and a lot of manpower and coordination. They just slid it all the way down the hill. It's quite amazing. Whoop. Oh, it works this time. No sound. There was some sound. There are 2 canoe festivals in Milne Bay. This is the second one, the sort of Hoo War Canoe Festival, which David and I went to. War canoes are called Gabos. 2 villages organise it, Wagga Wagga and Marwara. And if you ever get the chance, go there. The 200 or 300 sort of local people, just the festivals for them. They're probably 6 or 8 dim-dims. The rest were just local people really enjoying their festivities. 3 men there, all dressed up in their billas. And here's a... all right. What happened there? And this is the men dancing. This is a bit longer clip. This is the presentation of the pig, I gather. There's a pig tied to this pole, which you'll see in a minute. Sorry about the green colour, it hasn't happened before, I've got no idea there. And at the festival they had canoe races. David will go on to explain that later, that some of the 22-metre long canoes competing with each other. New Guinea's the land full of surprises. I was driving with Liz Abel here, a friend who sadly died a couple of years ago, down to East Cape, and we came across this mission plane that had crashed, run out of fuel. And I was having a chat with her about the ethics of collecting, Liz being an ex-sort of mission-raised woman and lived in Papua New Guinea most of the time. I was interested in collecting canoe parts, and I said I was a bit troubled by collecting things in this day and age. And she looked at me strangely and she said, "Green," she said, my nickname, she said, "if you don't collect them, they'll just rot on the beach." So I took that as an imprimatur to do a bit of collecting. Here's an item that I picked up on our 2017 journey. I just was literally on the beach. I expressed interest in it and a woman came up and her deceased husband had carved it, and I gladly paid her 20 kina for it. It's just a nice little piece. There's a piece Harry collected, and Luke Wong. They donated it to the Massim Museum from Quawater Island in the Marshall Bennett group. It's a lovely wave splitter. There's Murray Abel, my friend, and a man, Simon, who had some artefacts for sale. A few more. I bought some of these, not the stones, but some of the canoe pieces there. Here's Harry on his last trip. He's in Wabbenham on Woodlark Island, just talking to villagers and getting information, which he was very good at. There's David and Harry in the same village. You can see David there sort of in the shadows. But it was of huge interest to the local villagers and to us. Nearby on Egamatol, we took shelter for a couple of days. And then one morning, this beautiful big canoe came in. It was, it's called a Nagaga. These are the large seagoing canoes, probably 12 metres long. And it just cruised into the bay and very silently. There it is from the other side. Beautiful works of sort of art and craft, and technically just suited to the sort of quite rough sea conditions there. I look at something like this and I think there's nothing like it in a Western museum, and I think there should be. In South Australia, we've got the small Massawa from the Trobriand Islands, but no one has a canoe like this, of this scale. That's the MV Karinga beyond, you can see it in the distance, but we went around on that trip. Here's Harry at his best, explaining Massim Art to people. At Paris, Parcours du Monde, Tribal Art Fair, is the Frank Marcelin collection. Here's some of Harry's beloved lime spatulas, just beautiful, beautiful pieces. A collection of canoe prows and wave splitters, lovely things. Saku Saku or Mankuras, the ones on the left, decoration for canoes. The one on the right, it's a Sud-Est axe. There it is again. Harry wrote the catalogue for this whole exhibition. It's just, which I have. It's a beautiful piece of design and research. I dearly wanted this to buy it, but I couldn't afford that. I think 7,000 euros was the asking price, and I believe it went to an Italian museum after that. And the dance paddles from the Trobriand Islands, sort of quite a nice thing to have. I don't have one, but this is how I'd like to remember Harry. Here's Frank Marcelin on the left, Harry on the right, and Anthony Meyer's words, we've lost, can't see it there, we've lost a treasure, a library, a friend. Valet Harry Beran. And here's a couple of shots sent in by Luke Wong, Harry in the field on Egham Inlet, and then Harry in his happy place. That's all.